Okay, Kristi, as somebody who was an anchor in mainstream newsrooms for a long time, and so now you're contributing to Alex Jones, InfoWars band video stuff. This clip that I'm about to show with you at this school board meeting, was that part of the work you're doing, or was that
No,
Kristi Leigh mom? Mom going
that
after
was
the school board
Kristi
in
Leigh
this.
mom.
Okay, so is
See,
this,
because the
you
piece
guys
of
showed it on
the
the
piece of
show.
the story, yeah, it's the piece of the story here that is also very much a part of my story is I'm an Ohio Midwestern girl, born and raised, lived there all my life, then went to California, and California is tyrannical. Like the school system has been completely taken over by indoctrinating our children as opposed to teaching them fundamental education, and they handled the pandemic terribly. So I had no other choice last year but to homeschool my children in California. And so coming from California to Texas, I felt encouraged that I was going to be entering a state that was more free and gave more autonomy to the parents and the children. And I was excited, and my children were excited to go back to school. And so to have the school the day before my kids were heading back, pull the rug out from underneath and say masks were going to be required when the governor of Texas has been very clear on this, just enraged me, like, to be honest. So that's where it was coming from. I, with or without any contributions to InfoWars or Band That Video, I was going to go to and I was going to speak on behalf of my kids. And I know that a lot of these trustees, the board of trustees, they have conflicts of interest and they're listening to the news, which we both know is not fair and balanced in most cases. And so I wanted to put that out there, and I started out with, why do we as the public, because that was another thing, they decreased our time
Yeah.
from 3 minutes they decreased our time from 3 minutes to 1 minute. So you have a room full of parents that are wanting to talk and have prepared to speak 3 minutes, and last minute they only gave us 1 minute. And this was after they'd given the health agency official in the last meeting like a half hour to an hour to speak.
Right. Okay, let me play it real fast and then we'll talk about it.
First off, I would love to know why the public only gets 1 minute when three-letter agency puppets got all the time in the world last meeting. I am a longtime news professional, been in the business for 20 years, television news for 13 years, a main evening news anchor for half that time. Why is that relevant? Because I'm here to tell you that what you're getting from the news is propaganda, which is why I left mainstream news and have become an independent journalist. I'm challenging you to not listen to the propaganda, to listen to a news professional that is telling you that what you're not getting is the truth. Dig a little deeper and find out what makes sense. We are not looking at the risk-reward benefit. There are risks to our children wearing masks. We need that to be part of the conversation. I left California as a news anchor to come to Texas for freedom. And this is what I've come to, more tyranny. Trust me, you don't want to be California. Our kids are suffering. I also want to tell you, as an independent journalist, I'm putting you on notice that you will—
Your time has expired. Thank you so much for speaking tonight.
So smug, right? They're so smug with their little, like, 30 seconds, your time is up. So what I said, and they heard, and I have followed through on, at the end, where my mic was cut, was I'm putting you on notice that I'm filing a FOIA request for all of your emails and to figure out why you are pushing so hard a mask requirement when you say you've achieved 90% of the students here in this school district wearing masks. So only, according to them, only 6 to 8% of parents opted out. But they're continuing to push that basically under every circumstance, unless you have a doctor written note, that the children need to be masked. And this is after 90% of your students are masked for a virus that kills less than 1% of children. It's just completely illogical. And I'm so sure that people are sick of hearing my story of, like, that I came from mainstream news, but it was important. That was what I had to share as a parent, is like, this is where I'm coming from, and what you're listening to is illogical and gaslighting propaganda.
Well, I think the point that I heard you make at the beginning, especially, which is a point that people need to hear over and over and over again, I think, is that, and it's something that I try to do to set the stage, even telling people my own, my own void in knowledge when I was in the business, not saying like I knew everything and my coworkers knew nothing, but to give them a piece of what it's like working in the business, to show like these are not the people you should be trusting to make these really important decisions. This is not the information. I mean, hey, if you want to watch your 5 or 6 o'clock news, or you want to watch network news, fine. But take it with a grain of salt. I always say, like, I wish that newscasts would start or end with like, welcome to the 5 o'clock news. This is the best we could do today. And you should definitely watch this with a grain of salt because we don't really know what we're talking about. If they said that, then I would be like, okay, this is fine, because at least they're being honest with the gaps in knowledge, the fact that they give reporters 2 hours a day to do their work. They, somebody like me, shooting, writing, editing, driving the car, doesn't have time to read documents, doesn't have time to call everybody that I need to call. First person that answered the phone, great, you're great, you'll go on TV. This person I really needed doesn't call me back till 4:30. I'm sorry, I can't put you on TV because it's 4:30. My deadline's 5 o'clock. It doesn't matter if you have the cure for cancer. You're not going to make it on television tonight. So just giving them an understanding of how ridiculous the process is to make news in today's world, even if you have the best meaning, well-intentioned journalist, it's still missing all kinds of important information simply because of the process and the system, the way that it's set up. And so it's, instead of like sitting there and necessarily arguing the science behind this or the science behind that, because, hey, you're a former TV news person, right? It's not like you're a scientist, but you told them, listen, you're making your decisions based on information that is not entirely factual. You can call it propaganda, you can call it misinformation, you call it whatever you want, and I think journalists are very resistant to that word propaganda, right? But I'll look at them right now. If you're watching this and you're a journalist and you think what you're doing is not propaganda, you have to really still admit, even if you don't want to use that term, you don't really totally know what you're talking about, because there's no way that if you're going to be intellectually honest, that you have the time and capacity to really do that. And let's just have a really honest conversation about the fact that this stuff is just churned out like a peanut factory. You know what I mean? It's just like you just throwing them in the can and tossing them to the side. Their peanuts are all coming out, or like that, that I don't know if you ever saw that episode of Lucy, with the I Love Lucy and Lucy and Ethel at the chocolate factory, and it just starts going faster and faster, and they can't wrap the chocolates, and they just start shoving them in their face. I mean, that was how it felt like for me at the end of my career. So it just seems like it's something that's an important message that the average person and the people in these decision-making roles need to hear about the lack of knowledge among the journalists that they are trusting with these major decisions.
Exactly. And I mean, it lacks context, and that's what we need context. And like I said in my speech, risk, reward, benefit. Have you really looked at all of the risk involved in wearing masks in relation to the reward that it's going to potentially protect the children from a disease that might kill, or a virus that might kill you, at a chance of less than 1%? Because nothing is said about building natural immunity in children. Nothing is said about covering their faces and their teachers' faces. So that is a learning impediment for some of the students that have trouble with hearing or seeing the teacher. There were students that talked about having dyslexia and how this was just another extra thing that caused them difficulty. And then you're pitting our children against each other, because those that are asked not to wear a mask, well, then you have the other children being like, why aren't you wearing a mask? Like, get away from me. Like, my mom said, people that don't wear masks are selfish. I mean, it's just created such a chaos. And for what reward? Did we even look at the risk reward benefit here?
Do you remember after Trump was elected? I don't know what it was like in your newsroom, but I remember sitting in the morning meeting, and one of my peers pitched doing a story about how kids are going to school and they're just crying, they're just losing it. And thank God I had another one of my coworkers go, that's probably because their parents are losing it. I don't know about doing a story about how kids are all losing it. Like, kids just, are just having this just, organic emotional reaction to Trump being president. might have something to do with what they're hearing at home. But there were actually people in my newsroom who thought that was like a good story, that we should be, documenting just how upset children are at Trump being president, as if it has nothing to do with the way their parents think about things, If you like this video, don't forget to check out exclusive content on my other platforms. The links are in the description, where there are also links for how you can support my work.